Late March 2022. As the war in Ukraine raged on, aviation trackers noticed something strange. Two government aircraft, RA-61716 and RA-96017, suddenly broke formation. They didn't head towards Sochi. They didn't return to Moscow. Instead, both flew east, cutting across the endless forests of the Urals toward Yekaterinburg, Ufa, and finally Magnitogorsk, before vanishing from civilian radar. No official statement followed. No one explained where they went or why. But for those who've studied Russia's subterranean architecture of power, such silence speaks volumes. Because beneath those mountains lies Mount Yamantau, a massive peak long whispered about in Western intelligence circles as the possible site of a vast underground city, a place capable of housing the Russian elite, sealed away from the chaos of the surface. For decades, Yamantau has been surrounded by myths and secrecy. Satellite images from the 1990s showed roads, railways, and entire construction complexes burrowing into the mountain. The Kremlin called it a food storage facility. Military analysts called it something else. A nuclear-era fortress, the kind of place built not to fight a war, but to survive one. And now, with Russia under unprecedented isolation, those flights, those quiet, unexplained deviations, have reignited an old question. What lies beneath Mount Yamantau? Is it merely a relic of Soviet paranoia, or a still-living sanctuary where a government prepares for the unthinkable? In the coming chapters, we'll explore the network behind these bunkers, the secret construction units, the mysterious government department that funds them, and the hidden entrances that snake beneath Russian cities. Because sometimes, the most powerful story isn't written in the Kremlin, but deep underground. To understand Russia's bunkers, you first have to understand the people who build them. Their names rarely appear in public records, yet they are among the most powerful engineers in the country, working for a shadowy construction empire known simply as US-30. Officially, US-30 is the Construction Directorate Number 30, a government contractor under the Ministry of Defense. In practice, it operates like a state within a state. Its workers do not talk. Its projects are not listed. And when heavy convoys of machinery move at night toward restricted zones like they did in April 2021, heading into the closed town of Mezgori, near Mount Yamantau, the trucks often bear license plates from Moscow, not from the region they're entering. At the same time, satellite data showed new excavation scars on the mountain slopes, and residents in nearby villages reported night shifts continuing through blizzards. The official explanation? Infrastructure upgrades. But among insiders, whispers spread that US-30 had resumed expansion of an underground complex first started in the final years of the USSR. Oversight of this network falls to one of the most secretive agencies in modern Russia, the main Directorate of Special Programs of the President, known by its Russian initials GUSP. Its current head, Alexander Linets, is a former FSB general, personally appointed by Vladimir Putin. GUSP is responsible for the construction and maintenance of all secure state facilities, a deliberately vague term that includes command bunkers, communication hubs, and emergency shelters for the presidential administration. Linets almost never appears in public, but documents from regional contractors show his signature authorizing multi-million ruble purchases of ventilation systems, armored doors, and reinforced concrete materials designed for only one purpose: to survive a blast. One engineer who once worked with a subcontractor described GUSP projects as cities without names. No phone signals, no postal codes, only coordinates and silence. This secrecy isn't paranoia, it's strategy. In Russian military doctrine, survival of command is everything. If the Kremlin is destroyed, the chain of control must live on, even if it has to live underground. And so, under the Urals, and possibly under other cities, these invisible builders keep digging. January 2021. Russia's opposition leader, Alexei Navalny, releases an investigation that shocks the world, a 2-hour documentary titled Putin's Palace. It shows aerial footage of a colossal mansion on the Black Sea coast near Gelendzhik, complete with a helipad, vineyards, theaters, and even an underground ice rink. The Kremlin dismisses it all as propaganda. But when Navalny's team published the floor plans, There was one detail that stood out to military analysts: a reinforced elevator shaft descending directly into a subterranean chamber, connected by a tunnel leading toward the coastline. Satellite data later confirmed unusual excavation work in the surrounding cliffs, the kind used for ventilation or emergency exits. And inside, photos revealed concrete walls more than 38 centimeters thick, lined with blast doors. For engineers familiar with Russia's defense infrastructure, these weren't luxury features. They were the architecture of survival. As one former contractor told reporters, "No billionaire builds a personal bunker that deep unless he's planning for war, not parties." It wouldn't be the first time the Kremlin mixed luxury and security. During the Soviet years, entire resorts were disguised as sanatoriums while concealing military command posts below. Navalny's report simply peeled back that same pattern: a palace above, a shelter beneath. And who was behind the construction? The same network of contractors tied to US-30 and GUSP, the President's Directorate of Special Programs. End quote. The paperwork trails ran through shell companies in St. Petersburg and Sochi, but every signature led back to the same invisible bureaucracy that builds bunkers, not villas. Even the local power grid hinted at something unusual. Engineers discovered a dedicated substation supplying the estate with energy far beyond residential needs, enough to sustain a small industrial complex underground. When confronted, the Kremlin denied Putin owned the property. Yet insiders whispered, ownership wasn't the point, control was. Because this palace, like Yamantau, symbolized something greater, a parallel Russia, one that could keep functioning while the surface world burned. And still, the mystery deepened. If there was a hidden refuge on the Black Sea coast, could there be others buried even deeper, beneath the capital itself? Beneath Moscow's elegant boulevards and crowded subway tunnels, there's another world, darker, deeper, and infinitely more secret. For decades, urban explorers, retired engineers, and even a few defectors have spoken of it in whispers. A second metro system, built not for commuters, but for survival. They call it Metro 2. The story first surfaced in the 1990s, when Western intelligence reports described a parallel network connecting the Kremlin, the Federal Security Service headquarters, and several strategic command centers across the city. Officially, the Russian government denied its existence. Yet over the years, clues began to emerge: fragments of plans, sealed doors in disused stations, and restricted tunnels that appear on no civilian map. One of the most mysterious entry points is said to lie beneath Belaruskaya Station, a busy hub where millions of passengers pass daily. Deep below its lowest platform, explorers have claimed to see a gray door, welded shut and guarded even after midnight. Those who got close said they felt warm air streaming from the cracks, as if there were life below. In 2015, a man named Pavel Safronov, a former subway technician, was arrested for allegedly leaking state secrets after posting photos of what he believed were abandoned tunnels near the Ramenki district, an area long rumored to hide a massive underground command complex. Within days, the posts vanished, and Safronov disappeared from public record. The Ramenki complex is more than a myth. It sits directly across from Moscow State University, on land controlled by entities linked to Inopraktika, the foundation associated with Katerina Tikhonova, widely reported to be Vladimir Putin's younger daughter. Officially, the area was slated to become a science park, but construction permits revealed something different: deep earth drilling, large-scale ventilation systems, and the involvement of Transindustry, a company that has worked with the GUSP, the same agency overseeing presidential bunkers. Local residents recall heavy trucks entering the site at night, carrying reinforced concrete segments normally used in tunnel construction. One joked, "They're building a whole new Moscow under the old one." But the scale, if true, was no joke. Analysts estimate the Ramenki shelters could hold up to 10,000 people, connected by corridors stretching several kilometers and lying as deep as 200 to 300 meters underground. A city beneath the city, a government beneath the government. It's the logical extension of the Russian doctrine of continuity, a way to ensure that command, control, and elite survival persist, no matter what happens above ground. And while ordinary Muscovites ride the metro unaware, A silent infrastructure waits beneath their feet, powered, ventilated, and ready. Far from Moscow's marble halls and the Black Sea's guarded coastline, deep in Russia's Siberian heart, lies the Altai region, a place of forests, rivers, and silence. But in recent years, satellites and open-source analysts have detected something unusual here. The sudden appearance of a massive high-voltage substation in the middle of what should be wilderness. Its capacity, according to engineers, is enough to power a small town. Yet there are no visible towns nearby, only a fenced-off compound of reinforced buildings and freshly paved roads leading nowhere. Officially, the site belongs to Gazprom, Russia's state energy giant. But the amount of power routed there far exceeds the needs of any gas facility. Journalists attempting to visit the area report roadblocks guarded by men without insignias. Locals say that at night, they hear the low hum of turbines and see distant lights pulsing under the mountains like a heartbeat underground. Why Altai? For decades, this region has held a near mystical status among Russia's elites, remote, self-sufficient, geologically stable. If the Kremlin ever needed a last line of survival, a place beyond reach of nuclear strike or political upheaval, the Altai Mountains would be ideal. Sources within Russia's defense community describe the area as a communications and continuity site, one possibly linked to the same GUSP network responsible for the bunkers in the Urals and Moscow. From Yamantau to Gelendzhik, from Ramenki to Altai, the pattern repeats: secrecy, reinforced concrete, and a hunger for control. Every time a new facility emerges, the same fingerprints appear, the same contractors, the same protective laws, the same silence. And yet, the official narrative never changes. These are civilian infrastructure projects, spokesmen say, but even civilians can see the absurdity. No ordinary warehouse requires a ventilation shaft the size of a missile silo, or a power line capable of running a subway system in the middle of nowhere. It's as if a parallel country is being built not for the people, but for the preservation of power itself. A country beneath the ground, shielded from judgment, from protest, from consequence. And the deeper we look, the more one truth begins to surface. Russia's greatest secret may not be what it hides underground, but what it reveals about fear at the top. Every empire leaves traces of its fears. For the Soviet Union, it was the fear of the bomb of Washington's missiles turning Moscow into ash. For modern Russia, that fear has evolved. It's no longer about annihilation, but continuity, the obsession with ensuring that the system, the leader, the command structure can survive anything. That's why the network of bunkers, tunnels, and hidden facilities uncovered over the years feels less like a Cold War relic and more like a living organism still growing, adapting, breathing beneath the surface. Independent investigators, from Bellingcat analysts to anonymous Telegram channels, have tried to piece it together. Flight data, satellite images, procurement contracts, each a fragment of a larger puzzle. None of it is absolute proof, but together it draws a chilling picture. An underground state within the state, built quietly through decades of crisis and consolidation. The GUSP, led by Alexander Linitz, continues to expand its budget officially for strategic infrastructure. Meanwhile, Russia's visible infrastructure, hospitals, schools, regional roads crumbles. It's a contrast that tells its own story. The regime invests not in what supports the people, but in what protects itself from the people. When questioned, Kremlin officials dismiss it all as Western hysteria. They point to bunkers in the United States, Britain, and China, as if secrecy were a natural language of power, and perhaps it is. But what makes Russia different is the scale of the myth. In this country, fear isn't hidden, it's engineered. Each tunnel, each blast door, each underground corridor is a monument to one enduring truth. The deeper the bunker, the greater the insecurity of those who build it. Still, one can't ignore the logic. If nuclear fire ever fell upon the world, only a handful of nations could guarantee their leaders' survival, and Russia intends to be among them. Maybe that's not paranoia. Maybe that's strategy, the cold, pragmatic calculation of a regime that knows exactly what it has to lose. So the question becomes, are these bunkers the tombs of a dying empire, or the wombs of whatever comes next? From the skies above the Urals to the depths below Moscow, every clue leads to the same realization. Russia has built not one nation, but two. The first is visible, a country of parades and speeches, highways and monuments, televised power and orchestrated pride. The second is invisible, a world carved in stone and steel, far below the noise, where the real continuity of power is guaranteed. Yamantau, Gelendzhik, Remenki, Altai, they're not isolated mysteries. They're coordinates on a map of fear turned into architecture. Each tunnel, each hidden chamber, is a statement of intent. When chaos comes, the state will not die with its citizens. It will descend. It will wait. And when the silence above clears, it will rise again. In that sense, Putin's bunkers are more than survival shelters. They are symbols of the regime's ultimate belief that power must outlive truth, accountability, and even the people themselves. There's a haunting irony in it. For a nation that conquered space, the final frontier of its leadership is not the stars, but the earth beneath their feet. A civilization that once dreamed of reaching the cosmos has chosen instead to burrow into the ground, hiding from the world it cannot control. And perhaps that's the true story here. Not of concrete and tunnels, but of trust, a trust eroded until rulers no longer feel safe above ground. The bunkers are real, but so is the silence that built them. In the end, Russia's underground network is less a fortress than a mirror reflecting a government terrified of collapse, and a people left wondering what else lies beneath their country's surface. Because in Russia, as in history, the deeper you dig, the darker it gets.